Morning. Good morning, Rookman. And a blessed morning to you as well. Neil Francois, morning, sir. Always present. Good morning, Roxanne, and thank you for my brooms. Pauline, morning. Alberta, morning. Rena Jennings, good morning. Lisa Atwater, morning to you. Good morning, Teresa. Teresa Francis. Terrence Swan, good morning, sir. Morning, Shah. Lynette Harris, morning. Shedley Jimenez, morning. Ruben Rogers, good morning. Arlene Lewis, morning, Arlene. Morning, Jade Impulse. Deborah Duranti, good morning. Trevor Carter Nelson, good morning, sir. Gerald Pascal Mansell, morning. Glenn Richardson, Selena Koshi, Listra Sydney, morning. Cyril Mayas, Jennifer Ferron, morning, Jennifer. Margaret Thomas, good morning. Let me see who I have on Facebook. Morning, Daryl. Good morning to His Excellency, President of Pleasantville, and First Lady Mauricia Kingan. Diane, morning. Deborah Duranti, morning. Kenneth Gabriel, good morning. Phyllis Antwine. Rosemary Headley, morning, Rosemary. Sandra G. Thomas, morning. Morning, Desh. Arthur James, morning. Judy Bowen, David Taylor, good morning to you. Nicole Graves, Claudette Jeffrey, Marva James, morning. Merle Durant, morning. Denise Cummings, good morning to you. Glenn says he's waiting to see me in the Senate. And Niles, morning. Henry Amsterdam. John Edwards, morning. Candice Joseph, morning, Carol. Don't forget that. Right, morning to all. Yes, I took an extra little 5 minutes this morning. As they say, wardrobe malfunction. Somewhat. Yeah, turn on the tap. I didn't realize the water pressure. Let me say thank you to Wassa. These days, I hardly need to use my pump. Getting water practically every day. And water pressure nice. So while they costing Wassa, yes, Wassa still has some work to do. But there has been an improvement, I could certainly say. Because on my side, the water schedule used to be 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now the schedule is thrown off because on days that we would not normally expect to see water, we get in water. Notwithstanding the lack of rain and the and so on, Wassa has been treating my side very nice, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm sure other persons could make a similar boast. Yeah, not that I'm boasting, but still, I still feel for those who don't have it as good. But don't worry, Wassa is getting there, slowly but surely. Anton Batiste, morning. Bernadette Yates, morning to you. Annette Baird, Claire Carrington, morning, Claire. Morning, Julia. Morning, Donna. Right, so we're done later. Let me get into it. Couple things before I get into the main issue of yesterday's parliamentary session. So I was watching the news last night, and I saw where the name of a lawyer came up in our story, a most interesting story. A lawyer who's no stranger to Trinidad and Tobago, a lawyer by the name of Varun Debunking. You all would have heard me mention that name on many an occasion. It is a name that is normally mentioned alongside Gerald Ramdeen, and we know who Gerald Ramdeen is and what he's famous for. Varun is also famous, but not as. For the most part, he has managed to stay out of the limelight since the People's Partnership would have left office. But while during their tenure, he was most prominent. He was one of the attorneys representing assisting the commission during the Coleman inquiry into Clico and the Hindu Credit Union. He and Gerald Ramdeen were 2 of the lawyers retained by the state to assist the commission, and they were receiving something like $12,000 per day. And but the commissioner, Sir Anthony Coleman, had cause to admonish, reprimand both he and Joel Ramdeen, describing them as incompetent. Let me see if I have this here. Let me see if I get this. I want to come to this. 1 second. Let me just find this. Just so let me get this. Let's see. I'm sure many of us would remember that. So let me get this here. That's number 1. Right. That's what I'm looking for. So Anthony Coleman, the lone commissioner in the Commission of Inquiry into the failure of CLICO and related companies, has written to President Anthony Carmona criticizing the competence of 2 attorneys employed by the Commission. This, he said, has led to the delay in submitting the report. Coleman wrote, of the 3 local attorneys, 2 proved to be so incompetent, inexperienced, or lacking in any sense of professional responsibility that they became unavailable or only partially available. The Commission's legal team, which earned $12,000 a day, included counsel to the Commission Peter Carter, QC, instructing attorney at that Celeste Jules, Gerald Ramdeen, Varun Debedin, and Shankar Bidesi. They were all selected by former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan, contacted yesterday for comment. Debedin acknowledged that Coleman's criticism was directed at himself and Ramdeen, but that it was unwarranted. He said he was aware of the letter because he and Bidesi had sight of it when he was at the Commission's new office space at Albion Plaza. We have been working throughout. Shankar and I left here at 4 p.m. yesterday, he said. 4 p.m. $12,000 a day, but you finish work 4 o'clock. Okay. Debedin pointed out that the Hindu Credit Union report was finished, but CLICO turned out to be bigger than expected. He explained there were thousands of documents and transcripts to go through, and unfortunately, none of the attorneys was 100% dedicated to the Commission because there were other legal matters. None of the attorneys was 100% dedicated to the Commission, despite the fact that you're receiving $12,000 a day, 5 days a week, assuming. But then you're probably going to do some work over the weekend because you're billing, huh? You're billing for the days that you work. But let's just say they work 5 days for the week. Right? That's $60,000 a week. 4 to 5 weeks, $300,000 a month. And you're not dedicated to the Commission. Why? Because you have other matters to deal with. Debedin agreed with Coleman that the Commission was under-resourced, which meant that they could not meet their deadline of delivering the final report in the first half of this year. So the Commission was under-resourced. This is a commission that was set up under the People's Partnership. But today they have plenty to say about this administration establishing a commission of inquiry. Ramdeen, whose name was featured in the Prison Gate matter, as well as Varun Debedin for cutting and pasting prisoners' witness statements, most recently represented the state in the extradition matter for Chaguanas West MP and former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner. You all may recall that it was as a result of this commission of inquiry that Prison Gate, Varun Debedin was the attorney that wrote to the court in seeking to explain Prison Gate and why there was a cutting and pasting of witness statements, and he indicated that he had several briefs that he was dealing with, one of which was the commission of inquiry, and he was so overwhelmed with all of the briefs that he didn't really have time to dedicate to his clients who were prisoners as he was required to be, and so that would have resulted in him cutting and pasting the witness statements, because all prisoners is the same injuries and all prisoners use the same language according to him. And so when he read the witness statements of several prisoners in terms of their claims that they were beaten by prison officers and police, he noticed marked similarities, and he just decided, I'm going to put the same thing for everybody else. It's interesting that he would have lifted the witness statements from those matters in which the the claimant, the prisoner, would have had success in the court for the largest of awards. So the small awards we're not interested in now. We want the ones where the court award them 250,000, 500,000. Yeah, those witness statements powerful. So that's what we have. That's what we use it. So once again, Mr. Debunking has found himself in a bit of his lawyer's account. Please note this is not a PNM lawyer. So you will not hear Ed UNC speak anything about this. But if it was a PNM lawyer, I bet you, first thing this morning as we speak right now, Idoglaya would have been doing a doubles and coffee. But there'll be no doubles and coffee on this, I am absolute. Of this I am sure. Right. So let me get this. These ads coming on, man. A High Court judge has frozen the assets of an attorney as part of a bid by a company to recover $7 million in funds paid to a contractor for a construction project that allegedly did not materialize. Delivering a decision late yesterday, High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad upheld an ex parte application from Advanced Hose and Marketing Limited of Ridgewood Heights, Tacarigua, to freeze an account held by attorney Varun Debunking. In the court filings obtained by Guardian Media, the company's lawyer, Karina Singh, claimed that on July 19, 2023, her client transferred their money to contractor Cordell Filbert of Royal Palm Gardens, Malabar, Rima, as payment for a prospective construction project the company was pursuing. The first respondent, Filbert, has, through fraudulent means, misappropriated and or converted the sum of $7 million to his own use and benefit, Singh said. The transferred sums were fraudulently obtained by the first defendant through negligent and or fraudulent misrepresentation arising out of the prospective construction project, in which the first respondent undertook to provide services in consideration for the payment of the sum of $7 million. On Tuesday, the company's lawyers obtained a Norwich pharmacal order from a High Court judge in relation to the RBC Royal Bank Limited account held by Filbert that the company transferred the funds to. Such orders seek to compel third parties such as financial institutions to reveal confidential information of their clients, which can then be used to pursue litigation over alleged wrongdoing. Singh claimed that Filbert's financial records showed that after receiving the funds, $6 million was transferred to Debunking's account held with Scotiabank. It is with them on Scotiabank. That's his, this guy, was his name? Ramdeen also had his account in Scotiabank, the account from which monies were allegedly funneled from Vincent Nelson as kickbacks, 10% kickback for former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan, and it was from this Scotia account that the monies were drawn in cash and given allegedly to Mr. Ramlogan. Scotia only looking good. She further claimed that $624,650 was transferred to ZA Limited Engineering Consultancy, a company owned by Joash Ramjatan. The court proceedings also listed Ramjatan, his company, Mitunlal Prasad, and his son, Brad, as defendants. Singh claimed that Ramjatan and the Prasads were business associates of Filbert and acted as his agents. The first, Filbert; third, Brad; fourth, Ramjatan; fifth, Prasad; sixth, Debunking; and seventh, ZA Limited. Respondents have colluded with the intention of defrauding the applicant and or intent to or have misappropriated the transferred sum and or placed the transferred sum beyond the reach of the applicant. The sixth, Debunking, and seventh, ZA Limited, are liable in knowing receipt and or dishonest assistance. Under Justice C. Prasad's order, Debunking was barred from disposing of $6 million of his assets in the account of the money. In the account, the money was transferred to by Filbert and his other bank accounts. Debunking was also given 3 days in which to disclose records of all of his local assets exceeding $1 million. And if the provision of any of this information is likely to incriminate the sixth respondent, Debunking, he may be entitled to refuse to provide it, but is recommended to take legal advice before refusing to provide the information, Justice C. Prasad said. Wrongful refusal to provide the information may amount to contempt of court and may render the sixth respondent liable to be imprisoned, fined, or have his assets seized. The order, which will remain in place until the defendants appear before Justice C. Prasad next Wednesday, does not stop Debunking from spending $10,000 of his funds on living expenses. Debunking was also given the option to automatically lift the freeze order by paying $6 million to the court to be held pending the determination of the litigation. And Debunking can also apply to Justice C. Prasad to vary or discharge the order before the case comes up for hearing next week. So, is this thing gone? Yes, no. Justice C. Prasad noted that breaching the order or knowingly assisting someone in breaching it would constitute contempt of court. Any person doing so may be imprisoned, fined, or have their assets seized, the order said. The company was also represented by Jagdeo Singh and Leon Kalicha. The same names all the time, you know. In a brief telephone interview yesterday, Debunking denied any wrongdoing. He claimed that he never had any direct dealings with the company or Philbert. I had absolutely nothing to do with them. He claimed he had been previously retained by Ramjatan to represent him in separate legal proceedings and that the money paid to him by Philbert represented a loan that he, Philbert, allegedly gave to Ramjatan to pay his multi-million-dollar judgment debt. I was following the instruction. Look. This man intends to challenge the freezing order. $6 million judgment. So you take money. That's confused me with these people. How long do you all really figure you would be able to go before the police is involved in these matters? Somebody give you $7 million for a construction project. You allegedly take the people $7 million, deposit $6 million into an account belonging to Varun Debunking. And you didn't think that the people who give you the $7 million would want to know, hey, what's going on with the project? This is not $7. This is not $700 or $7,000. It's $7 million we're talking about here. So this individual, when he transferred this money to Debbunking's account, you didn't think, hey, the people will be calling us soon to what happened. I don't have the money going to this lawyer to pay some legal, some judgment, whatever, which means I'm not going to have the money to do the project. So what you thought was going to happen? What you thought was going to happen? And again, you have the same names, these usual suspects, right? They're under investigation for prison gate. 9 years now, as I keep saying. Well, a little more than 9 years. This police investigation going on. You know what's interesting? You have people like Insha and Ishmael and them filing freedom of information requests. They want to know about ladder and how much money spent for ladder in the fire service and all kind of thing, and how much money the police service spent to repair vehicles and which garage get and whatnot. That's what they're interested in. But nobody will file a freedom of information request on the police service to find out what is the status of the prison gate investigation. Former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith promised that all gates would be closed before the 2020 general election. All. That gate still wide open. Like, I don't know, like he passed that gate straight. He didn't know. Maybe that gate was at the end of the lane and he didn't realize that gate was closed. Yeah, right. Not a word on that gate, you know. Ask him today. Please, every day he writes in 2 and 3 posts on his Facebook page. Tell us about that gate. Tell us about that gate, please. Give us some information. Seeing as well, anyway, we will not talk about that just now. But tell me something now. No, you're not interested in that. No, you want to know how money is spent in there and how money is and to call through and canal. So Ishmael, when he asked a question, he filed a freedom of information request on the fire service with respect to the procurement of these 20 ladders, these wooden ladders, that cost $999,000. That has opened a can of worms and has more questions than answers. But I want to ask the question: how did Mr. Ishmael get his information? Where does the go from here? So you get the information, you put it out in the public domain, you share it with the media, and what? And what? Next? What next? You're joking, yes? Or you're not serious? But this Debunking guy is only in Trinidad and Tobago. You have that. A lawyer under investigation for serious criminal matters. And you still practicing? The Law Association, do they have a disciplinary committee? Do they have a disciplinary tribunal to deal with these attorneys who have serious question marks over their integrity, but they're allowed to continue? And this matter, so now the judge put a freeze, Mr. Debunking saying, look, I ain't to do it. no wrongdoing and whatnot. This money was for whatever. Right. At least, but your name still get called up in a wrong stand-up. Okay? Yet again. Yeah, but anyway. We'll see how that goes, how that plays out. But I just thought I would make mention of that. Right. Morning, Donna. According to my partner, 909, those UNC million love money bad, but they're afraid of the jail. They can't help themselves when it comes to money. Yeah, and I mean, Varun Debunki's father is the man who allegedly, well, not alleged, he is alleged, all right, let me say that, to have purchased one of the Range Rovers from Anand Ramlogan. Yeah? Remember the 2 Range Rovers with the same chassis number? Well, Mr. Debunki's father would have purchased one. And there was a whole tantana and bacchanal with that, where for over 18 months, the vehicle was not transferred to Debunking Sr. Yeah? But they make a whole bacchanal, the UNC. For months, we hear about Faris. And Faris sell his Porsche to Mr. Kewal Singh. And for 6 months, he didn't transfer the vehicle and all of that and whatnot and so forth. They have all documentation. They went to get things from licensing. They get documents, all kind of confidential documents they get to come and say that Faris sell the vehicle, he didn't transfer it, and that is against the law. But the man was the Attorney General. While he was Attorney General, is alleged to have sold his vehicle. And this story was covered in the Express. Sold the vehicle. And for 18 months, it was not transferred. For 18 months, the insurance remained in his name, despite the fact that the Express was able to provide evidence that the vehicle had been sold. And during the course of that period, at 18 months when it was not transferred, the new owner was able to utilize, I think there was still some strobe lights on the vehicle while it had been in the possession of the new owner, who would have been able to use senior public officials. And as a result of the non-transfer, this individual was able to utilize such parking spaces and so on. He would just show the insurance certificate to the security and they saw the name of the former Attorney General on it. So I go ahead. Went into some Diwali, some function they had in Diwali Nagara, I guess is probably what is on now, the, let's call it again. Anyway, the Diwali celebrations they have going on at the Nagar, and drove in and the police saw the flashing blue lights and go ahead. So there was benefits to be gained, but they never talk about that. 18 months ago. Apparently it wasn't illegal then. It wasn't against the law then. But Faris, oh yes, we need to prosecute this to the hill. The Integrity Commission need to investigate and Faris need to make a jail. Because they say 6 months he didn't transfer the vehicle, but 18, 3 times the amount they claim Faris take to transfer the vehicle. No consequences. No reprimand, that is all right. I tell you, if hypocrisy was a party, it would be that party. They have no moral authority, zero moral authority to criticize anybody. Forget not just the PNM, to criticize anybody on anything in this country. None. Anyway, I wanted to play something else. I'm going to put this thing on. I beg your indulgence again. All you know when I say that, what I come in with, right? Forgive me. Forgive me, please. What does I say? When you see these things raise its head, you need to treat with it. Just so. Yeah, I don't like him neither, but it is. Yeah.
And coffee. PNM and the PNM mass media portray and put forward and normalize corruption in your face with a PNM Prime Minister, a PNM President, a PNM uncle of the Minister of Finance standing in front of a PNM edifice of corruption and giving accolades to a man who has overseen more allegations and wastage of billions of dollars of taxpayers' money than any other human being since the early 1970s, President Professor Ken Julian. And the PNM portrays that and the media portrays it and pretends they don't know. You just saw and heard a press conference on the Nikwan fiasco, which is World GTL, which has cost this country over a total of $5 billion wasted flushed down the toilet. You know who introduced Malcolm Jones, the then PNM executive chairman of Petrotrin, to World GTL and the concept of gas to liquids? Professor Ken Julian. You know who's Professor Ken Julian? Severn Trent. You know who's Professor Ken Julian? TGU and Chatham Smelter Plant. You know who's Professor Ken Julian? UTT campus building increased from $400 million to $1.8 billion. You know who's Professor Ken Julian? Bamboo Networks. $31 million of taxpayers' money flushed down the toilet by arrogance and power. He was so powerful as a PNM czar that when a minister, PNM minister in the Ministry of Finance, Christine Sahadio, heard and saw that he was going to invest in some fly-by-night company called Bamboo Networks, her ministry officials went and did a due diligence, wrote him a detailed 26-page letter showing that this company does not qualify for the investment of taxpayer dollars. Professor Ken Julian went on to ignore the instruction of a minister in the Ministry of Finance of the government, invested or took or put $31 million of your money into Bamboo Networks, and it disappeared for nothing, not a cent, no benefit whatsoever, just flitted away to some unknown people. Where it is, nobody knows. And you know what PNM Key Christopher Rowley did, along with Faris Al-Rawi, the Attorney General, and Stuart Small-Pinion, the former attorney of Malcolm Jones? They took Ken Julian out of court when Kamla Persad-Bissessa and Anand Ramlogan were going to try and recoup your money, your $31 million. And now you have to sit down on the front pages and see PNM Rowley, PNM Kangaloo, PNM Clement Imber, and PNM Ken Julian stand up there with an order of merit, 2 orders of merit of the Trinidad Republic of Trinidad. They now PNM to stand on the front pages and give him a claim as if he's some hero. The PNM turns corrupt people into heroes. TGU was a take-or-pay contract. Who negotiated that? Who signed that? Who created that without a smelter even being built? And $150 million had to be paid before the plant was even constructed. And since then, take or pay, billions of dollars. And now your T and Tech rates going up. Your WASA rates to go up. All of this is the poor and lauding this man from Severn Trent to steel plant, to Chatham Smelter Plant, to TGU, to Bamboo Networks, to World GTL, to Nikwan, Ken Julian, and that's the PNM, and you all accept that. What you want me to say? PNM could thief? Well, let them thief. Let them thief the soul of the nation, because it's true.
Again, I repeat, if hypocrisy was a party, in this case, if hypocrisy was a person, he going on our 31 million frittered away to places unknown and to persons unknown. Your 31 million gone. This is the man who took Adolphus Daniel of E-Beam Limited to a then finance minister, Mr. Larry Hawaii, introduced Adolphus to Mr. Hawaii for Mr. Daniel and his company, E-Beam, to provide services to live sport. Do you remember that? Provide services. He was supposed to teach the young men English and mathematics at a cost of $34 million. So he is overwhelmed. $31 million, Ken Julian. But I tell you, in that party, less is more. So 31 is more than 34. $34 million paid to a man that he fined. From whence we don't know where he fined him, how he fined him, what was the relationship with this man. But you had a meeting with the Minister of Finance and you bring this man and tell him, hey, yeah, this is what we want to do. This is the program. This is what we're proposing. Right? Send that. You went. Hawaii says so. This is an Express article. I say, Anil brought this man to me. And the next thing, that was the last I heard after that meeting, was the last I heard of him. Until we heard of this $34 million that was paid to E-Beam. Not a sticker chalk, not a duster, not a pen, not a pencil, not an eraser. Taxpayers got nothing for that $34 million. Today, Adolphus Daniel has gone to the great beyond. Never to be seen or heard from again on this side. $34 million. So who is suing? Did they take Adolphus to court? Did Kamla Prasad Bisasan and Anand Ramlogan attempt to get back the taxpayers $34 million as he claimed they tried to get back $34 million from Ken Julian and the board of ETEC? Although Faris Al Rawi and them took the matter out of court and so on. Where is this level of passion to get back the country's $34 million over which he presided? Quick to take himself out there. Well, it's not me. It's not the minister. It's the ministry. It's the permanent secretary. And Sport TT had nothing to do with that. The minister don't want. We just deal with policy. So when they were in office, they know the minister does only deal with policy. But when the PNM in power, the minister's remit goes beyond policy. So Heinz must go. So Heinz work is not only policy. Heinz work is to tell the police how to operate and fire how to operate, and the army and the regiment, he's supposed to tell them how to operate, right? Because his work, when only PNM ministers, their job goes beyond policy. But he telling you, don't blame me for life sport. My work is just policy. The cabinet say do so, and I pass the information on to the permanent secretary and the other technocrats in the ministry, and they carry out the work. Blame them. But no talk about the $34 million. You ever do a doubles and coffee about that $34 million? But he all up in his feelings about $31 million and Ken Julian. Ken Julian has done more for this country than this clown has ever done and would ever do. Even if he were to come back, right, reincarnate and come and live his entire life over again, he still wouldn't do as much as Ken Julian has done for this country. No moral authority to criticize Ken Julian, right? And it amazes me how he could rattle off tip of his tongue all of these projects, and Ken Julian did this and Ken Julian did that, and PNM TV talk about TGU, take or pay contract, and how much money you had to pay. Well, I want to tell this clown, because I see you had about 4,000 views on that video, right? You see, they like to they come and they say these things because they know the majority of the population don't know the facts. So you can come and talk that talk, and the waterfront ilk who will listen to this trash and share it, they wouldn't know the facts. TGU, right? That was the company that was providing electricity, was supposed to provide electricity for the smelter plant, right? So when you come and talk about take or pay contracts, either you take it or you have to pay for it, but either way, once the electricity generated, you have to pay for it, and now millions of dollars going down the drain and TNTech. Well, I want to tell him the reason why the electricity was going down the drain, it is because the government of which he was a part took the decision to cancel the smelter plant. All over the place telling people, hey, no smelter plants. Can the smelter plant go kill all you? All you go get cancer and dead. But in many other countries where you have smelter plant, no, you ain't hearing no complaint, no large number of persons getting cancer and dying. But it's only in Trinidad. Yeah, tell the people all break. No, all you must protest against that smelter. Don't bother with them. They want to kill all you. All you will see. All you will get cancer, and your children will get cancer and all kind of disease. No smelter. Yeah? Well, the people are brain. Well, they protested against it, but they still voted for the PNM, right? That was one of the 12 constituencies that voted for the PNM in 2010. But still, there were a lot of people in Abreu who agreed with that narrative and protested against it. And when they came into office, what did they do? Cancel the contract. No smelter. We tell all in the manifesto, we told you all in the election campaign, no smelter, along with tax and so on. So smelter gone. But I'm not saying, all elaborate, don't worry. Don't worry, I know all was dependent on that project to get jobs and so on. So we will still try to provide something for you. What we're going to do? On the same site that the smelter was supposed to be built, we will create a shipbuilding, ship repair facility. So you all can still get jobs. Wait, where is the shipbuilding facility? Huh? Not a nail, not a pile, nothing. For 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days. They're selling dreams. If there were dreams to sell, what would you buy? She gave the people a library that to hold. Don't worry all yourself. We'll get rid of this smelter, but we'll give others something just as lucrative. But they tell you PNM means promises never materialize. Where that promise was that materialized? Where's Indra Pinky this morning? Huh? Indra, where are you? Come forward. Where the shipbuilding facility that Kamala promised the people of Labray to replace the smelter? Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. So when I hear this clown talking about TGU and take or pay and all of that, if you all had continued with the smelter was going to take all the electricity from TGU and pay for it because the smelter would have been making money. And so concerned were they about it. In fact, that when they came into office, the cabinet had an investigation, well, not an audit done to determine the viability of the smelter plant. And the report would have shown that the smelter plant was going to be profitable based on what the price of aluminum was at that time. But it cost us plenty of money because Dr. Rowley has been telling us on more than one occasion that the Chinese contractor took the government to court and is asking for billions of dollars. And the government now has to be trying to go to arbitration and holding discussions, negotiations, trying to, treat with that. All of these claims that have now come forward. The report that the commission would have spoken about how many jobs were lost, all of the things that Labray lost and Trinidad and Tobago lost as a result of their decision based on politics to get rid of the smelter plant. So when they talk about diversify the economy, that was part of diversification. How much millions and billions, like to say, billions. But since you know about numbers and so on, why you don't do a doubles and coffee and tell us about that report that the cabinet of which you were a part commissioned? Why you don't tell us about how much money this country has lost between 2010 to now? Do a study on that now and tell us how much money we lost because the smelter plant did not come on stream. How many jobs it could have been created? Well, let's create 55,000 jobs. And all of the fence line communities that lost out because of the closure of Petrotrin, how many fence line communities would have benefited from the smelter plant? After so much money was spent and negotiations undertaken with the Chinese, you know how much industries could have come out of that? Why don't tell us that, Douglas? Do a doubles and coffee and that and tell us that. How many fence line communities suffered? Only lie to the people of Labray, promise them things and never give it to them. To hell with them. You know why? Because them voted in PNM. So we can train them up in the hope that they would give us their vote. But they didn't vote for us, so to hell with them. Let them go so. You care about them. But you want to come now and talk about TGU and Babu Network and all kind of thing. Tell me about Tiger now. What was the name of the company? Tiger Limited. Tiger Limited. Tell us about that. This company that your former Attorney General retained for to do some legal work. And when the media went looking for the office, all they find is a whole shack or something boarded up. Nothing to be found, but money gone just so. Tell us about the 789 million in missing houses, fake houses. We want to know what that. You're coming to complain about 31 million, Ken Julian, but you ain't telling me about the $789 million in housing that cannot be found. Up to now, not one of them talk about that. Not one of them has spoken about that. 3 weeks now, can't hear nothing from them. You wouldn't do a doubles and coffee and that. Not Kamla, not Munilal, not Julene, none of them have come to say, well, that is incorrect. That Camille Robinson Regis is on propaganda and nonsense. Not one of them. No denial, nothing. Rudal Munilal is a man who always quick to come and defend himself and to give explanation and draw documents to tell you this, that, the other. He was Minister of Housing. Not one word from Rudal Munilal on that. I'm hoping that it will just die a natural death. Well, I hope that doesn't happen. Yeah. Right. Right. So I don't know how many of you are looking at the... Sorry, Donna. I know it's difficult to listen to him. But sometimes you just have to debunk them and their foolishness. Because their supporters don't know any better. Right? And they will comment and they will share this. Hey, listen what the PNM do. Listen what the PNM do. But I keep telling them, not everybody out here is of the waterfront ilk. Right? You ain't fooling nobody. You need to tell everybody 34 million. You ain't gonna talk about that. See on the newspapers a couple of days ago, she decided to chime in with respect to this issue with the 20 ladders and the wooden ladders and so on, and who procure and whatnot. And he says that is PNM corruption and all of that. I say, but this man for real? $999,000 spent on 20 ladders. $50,000 for a ladder, a wooden ladder, seems extreme. I don't know what type of ladder it is, what kind of wood it made out of, or whatever as the case may be. But I trust that investigation will be done into this matter to get to the bottom of it. What was the purpose of the ladders? Was due diligence done and so on? But he forget he was part of a cabinet that approved $6+ million to retrieve a fire truck that went over a cliff. $6 million. $6 million. He was part of that cabinet that said, yes, go ahead and pay the contractor to retrieve the truck. Despite the fact that you had another company come and say, well, yeah, what we could, it don't make sense, well, yeah, go and take crane and all kind of thing and bring up this truck, because based on what we've seen, this truck is unsalvageable. All right? It cannot be saved. That's the end of that. It's dead. Well, we could go down there, right? And basically, we could what we need to do if we had to bring it up. We charge for $25,000. We will dismantle the truck, bring it up in pieces, because based on what we see down here, that's what it just going to park up somewhere and rust anyway. Yeah? So pay us $25,000. We will go down there, we will chop it up and bring it up. Now, $6 million plus to bring a big crane and all kind of thing and drag it through and lift out and whatever. Yeah. And the truck even with that. The truck probably wasn't even worth 5% of that $6 million plus. He forget he was a part of that cabinet. But want to come and talk about $1 million and ladders and so on, and it's corruption and bubble and PNM this and PNM that. Well, if $1 million and 20 ladders is PNM corruption, what you call that? $6 million plus for to take out a fire truck? After the contractor charge only $10 million? And let's say, nah, that's too high. We'll come again. And the contractor said, right, I will take off $4 million. Or 3-point-something million. I could do it for 6-point-something. Or let's say, all right, that's something good. So a man come and he say, based on our calculations and so on, and the amount of persons that we need and the equipment that we need, there's $10 million to do this work. And you say, nah, that's too high. And he take off almost $4 million, and that didn't send off alarm bells for you. $4 million, by what? More than 40%, or 40% of the original. That didn't send off alarm bells. So why, whatever that $4 million was going to pay for, how is it all of a sudden you're able to take that off and still retrieve the truck? I'm confused. So you're trying to tell me all them other things that $4 million would have paid for was really unnecessary. When you bring the first invoice, it was unnecessary. But we invoice my fate anyway, if you could do it for less. You see? So all them projects, the Curep Interchange, Arima Hospital, Point Fortin Hospital, and so on, when they had all these significant numbers budgeted for these projects, and this administration was able to come in and do it for less, you see? It's the same thing. The same thing, but we go charge the highest, and if they take it, well, right, it's part taxpayer money. But if it is, they come back and say that's too much, well, you know, one company said we could do it for 25, the other one says 6 million. So, all right, we're going with the highest bidder. We'll put you back in office in 2025. So we could give all them more. Put us back, and we could give them more of that. You put that money, you know, but Rowley corrupt, and Rowley's a thief, and Hines must go, and the PNM corrupt. This is the most corrupt government ever. For 8 years. 8 years in office, not one minister. Well, save and except for Marlene, and Marlene's circumstance was something that is alleged to have occurred prior to this administration. But other than Marlene, and to some extent, Daryl Smith, no minister has been accused in this administration of thieving money as obtained between 2010 to 2015. All we were hearing was Bagamoni minister who have a meeting in Townhouse in Trin City and walking out with box and brown bag. Saying, yeah, well, it had real food, and I decided to take some food to go. Really? No minister accused of thieving no money in this administration. With all the projects that are taking place. They say Rohan got $150 million for the piece of land in Wicked Donna was there. All kind of figures they call, right? Rohan come and say publicly at I think there was some ribbon cutting ceremony. The man said, listen, that was state land. We had a lease. The lease expire. We don't know if we will get any compensation, if we're entitled to any compensation, because at the end of the day, the land has gone back to the state as the state land. Yeah? The lease was not renewed, and as such, we don't know if it is we will get some level of compensation because we would have had first lien to renew the lease and use the land for whatever purpose we were using it for. But as of now, lease expired, so we don't know if we will get any money, if we're entitled to anything at all. No comment from them. But quoting all kind of figures, but under them, in 2010 to 2015, those were the kind of figures that they were claiming that they had budgeted to pay. Eh? But then when the PNM come into office, we want to know how much money you pay Rohan. But Rohan tell all what it is. How come nobody have filed a freedom of information request? All the allegations they making, say that 100 million, 200 million, 150 million. Anybody file a freedom of information request to find out how much money he get? You know why they're not interested in that? Because they know he ain't get no money. They ain't pursuing that. So they will continue to push the narrative and the lie and say, oh, he get how much hundreds of millions of dollars and nepotism and cronyism and PNM corruption. But we are filing no freedom of information request to get the facts. Because the facts will bear out, the facts will bear out is the fact that you're a bunch of damn blasted liars. But anyway, we expect that from them. Put us back in office. So I saw the opposition leader made an appearance yesterday in the Parliament. One of her rare appearances. I don't know what spurred that, because she didn't make a contribution based on what was being debated yesterday. You had two speakers from the opposition, and I think, if memory serves me correctly, three speakers from the government. You had Stuart Young, Fitzgerald Hines, who would have piloted the motion, and then Keith Scotland. But he wasn't able to finish his contribution because the House was adjourned, sine die, on a date to be fixed. But that's the matter coming to, right? So I don't know what spirit led her to come to the Parliament yesterday, because she knew she wasn't going to say anything. The session didn't last that long. So to come all the way from the Pink Palace down in Philippines to come up to Port of Spain, you know, she don't like to come to Port of Spain, especially to get up early. And then you had to put on this whole mask. I don't know if somebody didn't tell her that Halloween was the night before, not yesterday. But you had to put on this whole mask to hide. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Mrs. Posabi says, no disrespect, but I'm looking at some pictures of her and looking at her countenance yesterday in the Parliament. As my mother used to say, she looking like she take a dose of old. Seriously, a dose of old. When looking at Kamala Posabi says a video from 2010 to how she looking now, miserable. I don't know if it's certain things that she consumes, or if it's the vagaries of the job, what it is, but oh gosh, boy. And you know, should I go there? Let me just touch that. You know, sometimes you could tell when a person loves to drink alcohol. The episode is, they're always doing that. Mrs. Posabi says always does that. Now, I'm not saying that the woman has an alcohol problem, but I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying she does that very often. When you look at her teeth, it's in a mess. It is. I don't know if it is the alcohol. Anyway, I don't know that, right? I don't know that the woman drinking no alcohol. I don't know. I just hear so. People say that, I never see her. I saw her looking like she might have been inebriated, but anyway. So, and yesterday, the government brought a bill. Let's see if I can get the name of it. So, the government brought a bill which is intended to compel certain persons in certain sensitive areas of national security, and persons who are subject to or who have access to certain confidential information, to be polygraphed and so on, to determine whether or not they may be sharing information that they shouldn't be. Basically, to check integrity and these kind of things, right? So if it is that you're working in a specialist unit or section in the police service and you are privy to confidential information, highly classified information that you might feel inclined to share with certain people who shouldn't have it, that your head of department or the TTB commissioner can in fact compel you to do a polygraph test. Other things, polygraph test, blood testing, drug testing to see if it is you're taking drugs and whatnot and the like. But it is intended, as the Minister of Energy would have said in his contribution, to try and root out corruption. It's not going to root it out completely, but as far as possible to root out corruption in these services. And we know people don't have trust in, unfortunately, the trust levels, public trust levels in the TTPS is very low. Has been so for quite some time because of the number of officers who have come before the court, number of officers who are currently in suspension for a variety of crimes and the like. And so the government is saying, look, we need to bring this bill because we believe it's going to help us to treat with the issue of corruption in these institutions. As is to be expected, the two people who talk for the UNC so far on this matter, Saddam Hussein and Duppy. I don't know, it's better Duppy had sit down and Hashima, or Duppy should have just stayed home. Because if you had any doubts that the UNC is a circus, after Duppy's submission and presentation yesterday, UNC is a circus. After Duppy's submission and presentation yesterday in the parliament, all those would have been removed. Duppy yesterday, like he was trying to again impress, he see the leader of the opposition making a reappearance, and he said, hey, I have an opportunity here to TTV myself. Let me audition. You know, so in case she's thinking about getting rid of me in 2025, let me show her what I can do. Because she's sitting right next to him. Well, boy, Duppy went off. If you see Duppy, all kind of body antics and thing and whatnot. You know, and I'm just sitting, I'm like, really? You really debating this bill? All kind of statistics he quoting from the US and whatnot and saying, Madam Speaker, when I read on this piece of legislation from the US here, cut and paste is what this government did. They lifted the whole thing from this piece of legislation from the US. But I mean, if you have to copy and paste, at least do it right now. You must be bright when you have to copy and paste. Do it right. Well, I guess he would be an expert in how to copy and paste. Maybe he should have given some advice or guidance to Varun Debedin and Gerald Ramdeen in the prison gate matter, because clearly they didn't do the copy and paste right, because the master of the court was able to pick up on it easy. And then even the DPP, when he read it and said, I am of the unflinching view, based on what I read in here, that a crime may have been committed. So clearly, he need to run a class in how to copy and paste. But I am concerned that if he is putting out himself as being a master of how to copy and paste, then if God forbid they get back into office, what can we expect? What can we expect? You have a man saying, if you had to do it right now. Do it right to fool the people. And the people, they spin the wheel club, put a three-piece suit every day to one stand up in the hot sun by a corner and spinning wheel to decide what topic you're going and malign Dr. Rowley on today. Hot sun. Roasting your bald head. When you're going home, it's only flakes. Flakes, your head dehydrated. Chopid you. Stand up in the hot sun spinning wheel. And the rest of them, wear them in air conditioned, sit down. And somebody say, look at that clump. It's not now he's a clump. Long time. Yeah, but they know who to use. Well, boy, I must commend Minister Stuart Young. Because when Mrs. Prasad says, I go play it for you. Like, yeah. He acknowledged Mrs. Prasad Bissasa's arrival in the parliament. He said, typical of the leader of the opposition. Remember for Separia that when she comes into the parliament on a rare occasion, she always had to make a scene. Her presence must be felt. She's always disrupted. She's always a show for the cameras. He said, I'm sure she took a picture out on the corridor before she came in to the chamber. I'm very sure. I didn't visit her Facebook page yet, but I'm sure she did, because I saw plenty of them yesterday dressed up in the East Indian way. Well, I guess they anticipated that the parliament would have been adjourned to a date to be fixed. So they used this opportunity to wear the Indian garb, so the East Indian wear for Diwali. So she was dressed in her East Indian wear. Khadija Amin, Ravi Ratiram. Apparently Saddam didn't get he and Munilal didn't get a memo. Or maybe Mr. Munilal needs to visit the Indian Expo up in Makoya, because I noticed his belly looked like it gained a pound or two, and perhaps the East Indian where he has is unable to fit. He no longer is able to button his jacket, so it always open. Come now, man, Muni, tell Natasha easy up on the Sada and stuff now. Yeah. Look like a parliamentarian, but anyway. There are people on both sides, so it has to need something. Okay? I'm going to play for here. Two things before I go to the structure. So the Prime Minister yesterday would have raised the issue of OAS and the Point 14 highway. And he would have committed that matter to a joint select committee of Parliament to investigate the matter. And the Prime Minister would have given a number. Sarah says Munila pregnant. That be yes, sir. You look so. Yeah. Yeah, so I just Helen is saying he's a clown, a former ambassador. Morning, Helen. Yeah, so the Prime Minister raised the issue again because coming out of, I guess, last week when the UNC would have brought Carson Charles, resurrected him from the political cemetery to come into the Parliament. Again, to TTV himself as well. As I said, they get an opportunity. They need to perform for Mrs. Pasabi Sesta to say, look at me. I want a Kobo sweat in the Senate too. Right? And so Carson Charles came and said a whole set of thing about OAS and denying the claim that the government has made that a clause was removed. And so the Prime Minister gave a very detailed statement and then he committed it to the Parliament. Just now, let me just get this here. But I want to play just the questions the Prime Minister once answered and then Munila's response to the Prime Minister. Let me get this here. And I raised that because I was surprised at how quickly Mr. Munilal would have responded. And I'm saying to myself, but why wasn't he so quick to respond when the Minister of Housing would have made her the arm? Yes, no. Where is this thing? Right, just now, give me 1 second. Which phone do I have this on with? I think it was this phone. See. So, my folks, bear with me. There's so many things I just want to show. Yes, this is it. I think. Is it? No, this is not it. Just let me pull it up here. 102.
Payment and performance securities was met with resistance by some of the institutions that had issued them and by OAS.
Yeah, there's the Prime Minister here. So let me just.
In various jurisdictions abroad. NIDCO was successful by order of the courts, including the Supreme Court of England and Wales. The court even directed the money recovered in the interim must only be used to carry on the project. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, along the way, there was a decision delivered by a tribunal of arbitrators in the London Court of International Arbitration, LCIA, an arbitration matter between OAS and NIDCO on April 16, 2002, that went against NIDCO. Fortunately, we did not give up, and NIDCO appealed the arbitration to our High Court, and on December 14, 2002, Justice Sipasal upheld NIDCO's argument that the arbitration tribunal had got it wrong, and he set aside the award issued by the tribunal and remitted the matter back to the panel for reconsideration. In his judgment, Madam Speaker, the judge indicated that NIDCO had properly terminated the contract with OAS. It was our view that the public needs to know a number of things. One, by what process, advice, and documentation was it determined that the billion-dollar contract must be amended to grant $852 million waiver to OAS? Two, who authorized the amendment of the contract? Three, what was the specific purpose and benefit to be had and by whom? Four, who actually carried out these instructions? Five, what was the role of the Ministry of Works and Transport and the board of NIDCO the consultant, and the management in effecting the amendment and its consequent waiver. Madam Speaker, with these questions and more to be answered, it follows that the public, through its representatives in this House, must seek and obtain answers from all persons involved or associated with this scandal. Madam Speaker, this is even more necessary since in recent times, attempts have been made to give opportunity to persons to put misinformation on the parliamentary record. Today, as I make this statement, a paper entitled "The Saga of the Sir Solomon Hochoy Extension to Point 14 Project from 2010 to 2023, an account of the development and execution of the largest infrastructure development project implemented in Trinidad and Tobago," has been laid in this House and referred to the Joint Select Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure. These documents have been laid for the Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure for urgent, detailed examination. Madam Speaker, I thank you and my colleagues for your attention.
As soon as the Prime Minister done talk, Munila decided to jump up, right? You know, in usual fashion in China. Anyway, listen to it.
Member for Orange East.
Much, Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 24.4, one question to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, in light of your statement, are you aware that a 15-member committee comprising PNM government officials met on May 20th, 2010, 4 days before general election, and recommended that the contract be awarded to OAS, which had the lowest bid of 5.2 billion? And in addition, the very NIDCO board appointed by the then PNM government hosted NIDCO on the 25th of May 2010, hours after general election, to indicate that they were the preferred bidder of the People's National Movement government.
Thou dost protest too much. Tell that to the Committee of Parliament.
You know, you had to hand it to Dr. earlier. You know how to deal with him. You think you score a Hail Mary. Here, listen to Saddam. Oh gosh. Destroy him with one question. Prime Minister, swat him like a fly. Thou dost protest too much. Tell that to the committee. You have information? When the committee meets, you tell them that. Yeah? I have nothing else to say to you. You're a clown. And what could he do? Well, for the rest of the session, he vexed. Because when they were debating the motion, the bill, and what's his name? The member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, Keith Scotland, mentioned member for Oropuch. And he's like, leave me alone, please. You know, in this kind of hostile way, like he vexed. I thought I hit Rowley a uppercut. And the man mash up my ribs. Mash up my ribs, you know. Isn't that, yeah, look, Munila, come to save the day. Doctor, is so? Really? Go sooner. Yeah, you tell that to the committee of the Parliament. Move from here with that stupidness. Yeah, I can't on the bench anything, but I will knock my desk. Yes? Tell the doc. Well done. That's how you respond to them. You tell that to the committee. Among other things, any other information that you have. But he wasn't so quick to get up and respond to Camille Robinson-Regis when she talked about the $789 million in missing housing. And to this date, we're still waiting. Because while the Prime Minister asking question, you quick whoever send him that information for him to get up and he say, aha, right, I catch you. Waiting for you to finish all. Let me rest this on your chest. Rest this on whose chest, Doctor? You say, take it back. You hold that. Go so. You thought you come with a bombshell, and as usual, it's a firecracker. Nobody has no time with you. So, the motion, what was, I can't remember the name of the bill, but anyway, just now, let me see this. Let me see.
Personal explanations, introduction of bills, the miscellaneous provisions, administration of justice bill 2023, in the name of the Attorney General. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by Minute.
Or the decision that we take. It will not be so much.
All right, forget me. I can't remember the name of the bill. I should have written it down, but anyway. But I gave you the gist of what the bill was supposed to be, right? So government is, and I understand this is not the first time they brought this bill. It's come to the House several times, but they're seeking to put legislation in place that would compel, that would give heads of departments and so on the authority to compel subordinates to take lie detector tests, to take drug tests, breathalyzer tests, and so on in the performance of their duties. And in particular, it's not the entire, while it would be, they would have that power, that remit for the entire body that they lead, it would be primarily geared towards certain people, persons who are in sensitive sections, particularly in the TTPS, the FIU, and so on, who may be privy to confidential information, highly classified information, and if it is you suspect that this person might be sharing information with persons they're not supposed to, then you can compel them to take a polygraph test. And if it is that they refuse to do it, then there could be certain penalties that they would have to face, disciplinary action for refusing to take these tests. Well, boy, after Fitzgerald Hines talk, as was to be expected, UNC, Saddam Hussein gets up, and his whole presentation is a set of what ifs. Again, they do not see the value in legislation to fight crime. Every single piece of legislation that this government brings in an attempt to fight crime, they go through it with a fine-tooth comb, with a magnifying glass to see what are the what ifs. So he come with, but what if the employee has medical issues? What if they have issues with their lungs and they are unable to give the amount of breath that is required for a breathalyzer test? And what if the person on medication? And what if you have an issue with the polygraph testing, because these things are not 100% accurate? And what if you get a false negative or a false positive? And what if? That's all. It's the same thing when they brought the bail amendment. What if the person innocent? And what if the police set up the person? And what if the police have a vendetta against somebody and they decide to frame the person? And what if? And what if? Everything is always what if. We cannot support on the basis of what if. Bring the data. We want the data. Always want data. Where is the data that they support? And I would say, right? So you have, when Duppy came to talk, and he talking about how they examine the legislation and so on, and they identify flaws and whatnot in the legislation. Maybe if they were so, if they used to scrutinize legislation in such an in-depth manner when they were in office between 2010 to 2015, they would have realized Section 34, or did they? Maybe if they had examined legislation as with the same level of scrutiny that they are doing now, that this government brings, then Anand Ram Logan would not be able to sue the state today on numerous occasions for flaws in legislation which was brought when he was the Attorney General. Legislation which his department drafted, which he would have piloted in the Parliament, and it was passed based on the majority. And as soon as he leave office, you come and sue the state to say, well, this is flawed legislation. But who bring it? It's you. You were the Attorney General. So you knowingly brought flawed legislation to the Parliament and had it passed. So all of these issues now that he was able to bring up in the court and win. Apparently none of them, they didn't have these cognitive abilities between 2010 to 2015 to look and say, no, yeah, you need to change this. We have problems here. This could open a can of worms. They didn't know that. They didn't know that. But today, now they know all the issues with every bit of legislation, what if and this and that. So the question is being asked. The speaker, Stuart Young, Keith Scotland, again, ask the question every time they get to speak. What we want to know, are you all going to support this legislation? Tell us. With all these semantics and all this bravidage and all this showmanship and thing and titty and throwing up your body, and are you going to support the legislation? And as Stuart Young had to point out, he said if it is their issues and recommendations that you all think need to be put into the legislation, when we get to the committee stage, no problem. Bring your amendments and we are open to it, because at the end of the day, we want good law. We want to get the best law possible. Because this particular bill has certain sections, certain clauses that infringes on constitutional rights. It requires a 3/5 majority. So without the support of the opposition, it cannot pass. It cannot pass, right? So based on what we've heard so far from the two persons who spoke on the UNC side, it is apparent they're not going to support. In fact, TV6 last night asked a question on their meter. Let me see if I get a question here. Right? Do you expect the opposition to support the bill providing for polygraph, drug, and biometric tests for public officers working in sensitive areas of national security? That was the TV6 people meter question. The response was 14% said yes, 86% of the respondents said no, we do not expect the opposition to support the bill. 86%. I would have liked to know how many persons that poll constituted. But 86% of the respondents said we do not expect the opposition to support. So is it that UNC supporters don't watch TV6? They're not inclined to vote? Or is it that the population is aware that they are not an opposition, they are an obstruction to good governance, an obstruction to laws that is intended to assist in the crime fight? And I ask the question, why would they not support it? Why would they not support, as it says here, the bill providing for polygraph, drug, and biometric tests of public officers working in sensitive areas of national security? FIU, the TTPS, customs, all of these things. So the same persons, and Stuart Chung would have given the example. This, if it is you have a situation, and it speaks to the whole issue of vetting persons for these specialist units. And he would have drawn reference to the fact that when Gary Griffith was Commissioner of Police and he attempted to implement a policy in the TTPS of polygraphing officers, that many times officers would refuse to take the lie detector test. And as a result of that, the only option available to the Commissioner of Police with respect to sanction was to transfer these officers out of the specialist unit or transfer them to some other station. That was the only thing. But they are saying now, look, we want to put this in place so that the Commissioner could compel the officer to take the test. And if the officer refuses, that the Commissioner could take certain remedies or sanctions against the officer for refusal. And the UNC say, no, we can't support that. And the usual thing, they're trampling on people's human rights and constitutional rights and everything but rights and rights and rights. But it is an issue with respect to persons who have access to sensitive information, sharing it with persons who are not supposed to have it. And one wonders, is it that they are refusing to support this legislation for the umpteenth time because it is to protect them? Because we have recent examples. Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police, has on at least 3 occasions in the recent past gone to court, right, seeking to compel information out of the TTPS and so on, the FIU, where he claimed in one instance that his wife's phone was tapped and that he, Gary Griffith, knew this to be a fact because he saw a document, a confidential document that was sent allegedly from the acting Commissioner of Police then, McDonald Jacob, to the head of the SIA or the SSA, asking them to tap his wife's phone. How he get that document? How he get that? He is citizen Gary. He is no longer entitled to that. But he is saying, right? He put it in print that he said it. He saw the document. So somebody who at that level of the TTPS who has access to confidential information like that, according to what he said, showed him the document. So it was in his hand. Or they sent it, well, they didn't send a picture because when the court asked him, well, if you say your wife phone tapped and you have evidence, bring it before the court and the court will entertain you. So he wasn't able to produce it, right? So the person didn't give him a copy, but he said he saw the document. He come again, FIU, request for information with respect to his bank account. Somebody in the FIU who have access to that information send and tell he, hey, Gary, they're looking for information, huh? They're searching. Yeah, they send a request to the bank to get your bank statement and so on. Access to sensitive information. And he, the former Commissioner of Police, come out to say, because of the position that he formerly held as Commissioner of Police, there are persons who are, who are sympathetic to him, or persons who like him, as the case may be, and they send information for him because of that former position that he was in. Former being the operative word there. He is no longer. He is not subject. He's not supposed to have access to this information. But people giving him this information because of the position that he held. And I asked the question, given the loyalties that he may have established while he was Commissioner of Police within the TTPS and these other agencies, is it possible that in the same way persons would be inclined to send him information on investigations taking place into him, his wife, and anybody else close to him? Is it possible then that these persons would be willing to share information should there be an investigation taking place into any member of the opposition? That he could pick up the phone and call and say, here what now? We hear in a talk that this one under investigation. Or we hear in a talk that that one under investigation. Check that for me now. Check that for me and let me know now. This is what they're trying to plug. So that when it is Janti Lakshmidiyal could be getting confidential documents from special branch, a confidential memo speaking to the issue of an investigation into Foster Cummins. And she has no qualms as an attorney coming on a Monday Night Forum platform and waving this document, and they put it up on the big screen for everybody to see the intricate details of this confidential memo that only certain persons were supposed to see. That is the issue. That is what they're trying to plug. So that when the Prime Minister would have announced that Marlene MacDonald came and told him that Kamala Persad told her, the police coming to lock you up, they're going to charge you. How Kamala get that information? Who told her that? When it is she went on the Monday Night Forum, one of the last that they had back in August, we know in November, and like they abandoned that because they realized it's a waste of time. She said that senior officers in the police service, she was advised by senior officers in the police service that they have a mongoose gang, a PNM mongoose gang in the police service that they're trying to suppress information with respect to the investigation and the claims that Fali made in the House, the THA, about the Prime Minister meeting and the Commissioner of Police had some meeting with Akil Abdullah and all of that, and certain officers in the TTPS and certain units trying to suppress the information. And she said senior officers told her that this legislation is intended to treat with that. That sensitive information is supposed to remain where it is supposed to be, for certain eyes only. It is not for documents to be shared willy-nilly to the opposition, for them to come on a Monday night platform and bust a mark. It is not to inform persons who are subject of police investigations of a criminal nature to be able to get information and be tipped off by persons in the service or in the particular unit who is loyal to this individual for whatever reason. That is what they're trying to fix. Because on numerous occasions, Faris Al-Rawi and the Prime Minister have mentioned to us, and to some extent Stuart Young would have mentioned to us, that there are certain investigations taking place which they cannot speak to. Investigations into matters, into things that took place between 2010 to 2015. These investigations are at a sensitive stage, and we cannot have information being leaked to these persons who are the subject of investigation. We know that the Member of Parliament for Kuva North is currently being investigated by the police for human trafficking, prostitution, and other things. So is it then, what is the point of having these investigations and you're making headway, and the person who's being investigated at every step of the way is informed of what the police have and where they're at, so they can cover their tracks? It defeats the purpose of the investigation. And so the government is saying we need to plug these loopholes. But the UNC is saying, nah, we ain't interested in that. We can't support this bill. We can't support this bill. It's infringing on people's human rights. But we know why they can't support it. Because they need to continue to be fed information. So the boy Gary could continue to get his whistleblower, as he calls them, his whistleblower, to continue to share information. So anytime there is anything, any police investigation into him as Commissioner of Police, into his family, any of his family members, he's always kept abreast of what is happening. So he's one step ahead of the police. And the government is saying we need to fix that. And the UNC is saying no, we are supporting that. We're not supporting that. 86% of respondents say they don't expect the UNC to support it. Not even with their own amendments. They're not say, well, let us find the law. We think if you want us to support this, well, put this, put that, put the next, put the other. Not even that they're willing to do. They will come and gallery themselves and say, oh, you see this law, this. And Saddam Hussein is asking, what is the urgency of bringing this to Parliament? What is the urgency? You see what's going on in the country, Saddam, but you want to know about what is the urgency? But it's not only for that to know. It is so that when ordinary man is being investigated, we always hear about police officers who on the take, police officers who run in drug blocks, police officers who involve in different things, and who might be inclined to tip off. As Chochong would have given the example, suppose customs decide that they want to have a sting operation in collaboration with the police for contraband, whatever. So you have a shipment coming in and we want to catch whoever is the person. And all it takes is one member of the team, one member of that team to tip off whoever. Hey, they know it? So nobody to come and pick up that barrel, no? Nobody to come and pick up that box. They're setting up a sting operation, so the minute you come in, they catch you. Right? And that's the end of that. Nobody show up for the box and it remain there, and this sting operation gone down the drain, and this person is free as a bird to bring in more contraband and try and see if they could get away with it. But the same people who tell you, we can't support the legislation to be able to weed out the moles in these institutions who would compromise such investigation. It's the same people who complain, the borders porous, and the borders porous, and we have a working scanner and arms and ammunition coming in through illegal ports of entry, as if the scanners will solve that problem. The scanners alone will solve that problem, right? Right. Because even with the scanners, as they said, it's not all containers would be scanned because of the volume. So they would be selective. Yes, we would increase the numbers, but there would be certain things that might get away. Maybe a barrel or a box might get away. Because whoever on the inside and who taking bribe, we have to fix that. So they're saying that if it is that the heads of department suspect, hey, you see that officer? We feel he taking bribe. Come, he need to do a polygraph test. As it is now, he could say, I'm not taking a polygraph test. And if it is all they try to force me, I call my lawyer and he drop a lawyer letter on their backside, and that's the end of that. So, well, what are we going to do? Can't do nothing. They are now trying to give the law teeth to enable these people to weed out the corrupt elements. The people who complain the most about it, they want to support the legislation. Yeah, but Hines must go and Rowley must go. Hines must go and Rowley must go. They're trying to fix the thing as best they could. As best they could. I mean, look at the situation with the president calling out the reserves from the defense force, 100 reserves, that's just the police. You know, there are people in high office and who complain and that is not enough. Or you ain't doing enough. Yes, there's 100 more boots on the ground, but that's not enough. What do they want? It is a step in the right direction. It is more than we had before. Rather than compliment the government and say, yes, you're all heading in the right direction. Well done, well done, well done. Keep it up. Nah, that is not enough. I'm going to play this, sir. I'm going to give a little bit of stewardship. Right. Yes, sir. Okay, this. It's not that long, but I felt it. Yeah. So he had me rolling last night. I'll put this back on here. You all should really look at the Parliament channel sometimes. Yeah.
Subject themselves to these tests. We have to include defenses for those particular matters, Madam Speaker. So with these few words, I thank you very much.
Member for Port of Spain North, St. John's West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Morning, Andrew.
Madam Speaker, today we are called upon as members of this House, as elected members of this House, the bill that has been put before us, and having listened quite carefully to the member for Barataria Sawo, the compelling question that has remained unanswered at the end of his contribution is the opposition willing to support this piece of legislation that has been put before the House? As you see, what we heard, and I must say the member for Barataria Sawo has developed some level of skill. What we have heard for the last 45 minutes, I believe, is a rambling of points, none of which say whether the policy that is before this House today is a commendable one, whether the policy that is before this House today that I will spend some time on is a legitimate one and one that they are prepared to support. So through you, Madam Speaker, to the population, what we're here today, because you would not have picked it up previously from the previous speaker, is we're here today to take a decision to provide certain elements of the public service, and in particular those charged with responsibility of law enforcement and other areas that affect national security, in particular, with the power and the ability to perform certain testing in very specific circumstances. It is not for every police officer, it is not for every prisons officer, every fire officer, every attorney, legal officer in specific positions, but very carefully considered positions where you are exposed to information that will affect not only national security, but possibly ongoing operations, the planning of operations, etc. This whole bill is to facilitate, with one pillar, a fight against corruption that unfortunately has become a cancer rooted in our society. Madam Speaker, what we are seeking to do today is merely to provide the legal authority and ability for heads of department, for example, in the Defense Force, in the prison service, in the police service, in the BIR, in immigration, and in customs, to request that officers who have an ability to see specific intelligence reports and other very sensitive information be subjected, for example, to polygraph testing. So when we heard quite the submissions on the evidential value and whether it could be used for evidence, that does not arise, quite simply. All we are seeking to do here today is to give, for example, the Commissioner of Police the authority to request that an officer undergo polygraph testing in specific circumstances. Right now, they have persuasive powers. So the example that he referred to, my friend, from Barataria Sawa, of a former commissioner of police quoting from a newspaper report saying that he wanted to polygraph officers, and I believe it was in the Southwestern Division at the time, and that they refused. The critical point that was very quickly skimmed over is that they refused. This now is the legislation being put in place to compel them to undergo the polygraph testing, and that is what we're seeking to do. Because when they refuse, all you do is you transfer them. Those who were subjected and allowed themselves to be polygraphed, when they passed it, they were allowed to continue in post. And that is a good example to give to the country as to why this legislation is necessary. You see, in that particular instance, the Southwestern Peninsula, unfortunately, has become a gateway, thank you, a gateway for a lot of illicit and narcotics, firearms, even animals, for human trafficking, and these types of things. So the Commissioner of Police at the time wanted to make sure that the officers there were properly vetted and were not part of the problem. You see, I can say as a former Minister of National Security, very often you're provided with intelligence reports. And these intelligence reports, while it's not evidential, will point at certain corrupt activities taking place. And included very often in these may be officers in customs, in immigration, in prison service, in the police service, in the BIR and other areas, behaving in a manner that is skirting on illegality and has the ability to compromise what is required to be done legally. So in that instance, you don't want officers who are part of the criminal organization, because it happens. The vast majority of these services are not corrupt, but all it takes is a couple corrupt persons in key and critical positions to undermine a whole operation. So for example, the police, the customs, immigration planning an operation, all it takes is one officer to provide that information to the criminals, and it would have undermined the whole operation and ensured that it would not be successful. So to the population who is interested, because the population is interested, the vast majority of us anyway, in finding ways to combat corruption, in finding ways to allow the Commissioner of Police, the Commissioner of Prisons, the Chief Fire Officer, the Head of Immigration, the CIO, the Chief Immigration Officer, the Head of the BIR, and these officers to weed out corrupt persons. Another point I'd like to make at this stage, as I listen to the member for Barataria Sao, you would have believed that these are not amendments to parent legislation. So for example, when he spent a lot of time talking about, well, here you refer to an officer, but shouldn't you define the prison officer? It is actually an amendment to the Prison Service Act. And in the Prison Service Act, it will list exactly who it is referring to. And I will get to some of the specific points that were raised in a short while. But just to tell the population at this stage that this is a bill that is seeking to amend certain specific pieces of legislation to give the authority, the people in charge, the ability to require polygraph testing, use of biometrics, and the use of drug testing, all three of which it must be accepted by any sensible person with knowledge are necessary if you're going to have officers dealing in vetted areas, in areas that there are extra levels of sensitivity. So at the outset, just for those who are listening, through you, Madam Speaker, this bill is dealing with legal officers who fall under the Judicial and Legal Services Act in very specific positions and very specific departments. It is not for all, because it defines the departments at clause 3 of the bill. It defines department as meaning Customs and Excise, Immigration, Board of Inland Revenue, and the Registrar General's Department. And for the population to understand why would the government want to provide the heads of these departments with the ability to require and to call upon a legal officer in any of those entities to be subjected to polygraph testing, drug testing, or biometrics. Let's use, for example, the Registrar General's Department. The population is well aware that unfortunately there have been instances, and it would have taken place in the Registrar General's Department, of land deeds being interfered with, or birth certificates being created, or death certificates being created, because all of these things have legal purposes. And if they're fraudulently or corruptly interfered with, they are going to affect other transactions. Similarly, in the Board of Inland Revenue, if you have officers who are deciding a person owes $35 million in tax, but I will just give you an opportunity to pay $1 million and you get a certificate of compliance, that is something we as a population, and in particular this government, does not want to encourage. And what we're doing here today is trying to provide, it is not the parents who are charged with the responsibility in very specific circumstances to require legal officers in the first instance in those departments to be subjected to certain testing. And just to give the assurance, it is for the heads of those departments to order law officers to submit for polygraph or any other lie detecting test. Another point that was made, which is a ruse, is a red herring, if I may say so respectfully, is it doesn't identify what kind of polygraph test or what kind of biometrics. That is not for the parent legislation. This parent legislation that we're passing here today, which is an amendment to Parent Acts, is really, as I see, and it is worth repeating, to give you the ability to call upon certain persons to undergo these tests. Obviously now in the implementation and the administration of it, there will be regulations, or as happens in the police service, there will be orders issued, standing orders, etc., that will determine those things. No one is trying to avoid due process of law. This is to give persons the ability to require the testing. The next thing that needs to be said, these, Madam Speaker, through you, for all of the various organizations, the prisons, the fire, the police service, the defense force that we're referring to, these are the instances for all of them where this particular officer can be called upon to undergo such a test. One, where the law officer in this instance performs any intelligence or counterintelligence function. Very, very specific. It is not going to be every legal officer, every police officer, every defense force officer. There's going to be very few fire officers, very few prison officers, but it is specific, and one can immediately understand why. Because when you're dealing with intelligence and counterintelligence, there must be an element of secrecy. There must be an element of protection. And if you are running one of these organizations and you have a fear, an apprehension, a suspicion that any one of your officers who are subject to that type of information have any shakiness, any element of potential corruption, why shouldn't you give the head of the department the ability to say, member for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West, undergo a polygraph test in those instances? And you know what is frightening? We sat here and we listened for 45 minutes and there was not a single, I can't even say a single good reason, because there was not a single reason given as to why this legislation should not be supported today. Not one. But you come here and you throw this and you throw that, as I'm sure, well, hopefully we wouldn't hear any more of. Hopefully the submissions to come would be, yes, we're willing to support this. Because you see, in the whole PR exercise that takes place on that side, very often they come out and say, yes, we want to fight crime. If we were in power, these are the things we would do, etc., etc. Well, now you have the opportunity here today, because we as the government are not the ones asking for this. It is those in the police service who are charged with the responsibility. It is those in the defense force who are charged with the responsibility. And I'd like to now put on record as a point of law, because I've given this advice previously, and I can say so without breaching at, for example, a cabinet level or a National Security Council level. Anyone entering into the service can be subjected to polygraph testing, because the principle in law is you have a choice. If it is now that you're going to enter into a contract, I am offering you that, yes, you can be employed by me, but subject to these conditions, subject to undergoing a drugs test, subject to undergoing a polygraph test. So any recruit coming into any of these organizations, it is the state has the right to ask them, subject yourself to one of these tests. But what we're doing here today is we're providing for those who are already in the service. Because you see, times have changed. The risks have changed. The temptations have changed. The criminal network has gotten a lot more sophisticated. I support 100% what the member, my colleague for Lavantil West said a few months ago, and he was wrongly attacked and criticized, both roundly, R-O-U-N-D-L-Y, and as well as wrongly, W-R-O-N-G-L-Y, when he said that corruption has seeped every part of the society. And he named certain institutions. And the truth is, he knows, because he gets the intelligence reports that are provided to him by professionals who are vetted. And to let the population know as well, there are already units, for example, in the police service, where you are required to be polygraph tested every few months to remain in the unit. The special branch, the MOPS, and other areas. There was a particular unit that was set up under a former commissioner of police not too long ago, an operational unit, and you had to be vetted to enter that. And you know, the best of the best who want to enter these units do not mind subjecting themselves to a polygraph test, getting in, and to stay in the unit. And the effectiveness of the units depend on the ability to trust, the ability to know they're operating with integrity. And unfortunately, from a human point of view, very often a big stick is required. And if you know you're going to be polygraph tested, you know you're going to be drug tested, you are less likely to go down the wrong path. It is a deterrent, as the Minister for National Security reminds me. The second instance where any one of these officers, and it is not all, I repeat, would be subject to polygraph testing, drug testing, or biometrics, the collection of their biometric information, is in this instance a law officer assigned a section, unit, department, or division where top secret, confidential, sensitive, heard no one deal with that, because it is recognized immediately that if that is an area that you're operating in, secret, sensitive information, well, then you should be subject to these things. It is not every day you come in, and even if it is, so what? If you are operating above board and you're operating without fear of contradiction, that you're doing anything corrupt or lacking integrity, you would subject yourself to it. The next area that you can be subjected to and called upon, once these heads of department are given the ability to call for polygraph tests, drug testing, or that you provide your biometric data, is an officer who is part of or involved in an ongoing investigation involving economic loss such as theft, embezzlement, misappropriation, serious or complex fraud, or an act of sabotage or espionage or money laundering. Madam Speaker, I pause there because I am certain that all of our citizens who are listening understand again immediately in this third category why it is that you would want the highest levels of integrity of people to be operating in that arena. If you have an officer involved in an ongoing investigation involving economic loss such as theft, embezzlement, misappropriation, serious or complex fraud, or an act of sabotage or espionage or money laundering, is it that there are certain people that don't want to support this legislation because they are concerned and worried about ongoing investigations in those areas? Because I can't for the life of me understand. I have not heard any good reason, because as I said, not a single reason has been proffered thus far as to why this legislation should not be supported. The fourth area where a person could be submitted to any of these testing is if the officer has or had access to property information or files that are the subject of an investigation. Again, it is immediately understandable why you would want that category of person subject to. If I am part of an investigation into very sensitive areas, and then I'm transferred out of the unit for one reason or the other, and then there's a suspicion by the head of the department that I am now providing the information that I was privy to during that period of time to persons I shouldn't. Obviously, the head of department would want the ability to have me tested as to whether I have done so or not. And to hear the submission by the member for Barataria Sawa that, oh, well, there are no sanctions. It is not for the Parent Act to provide a sanction as to whether you do or you don't do this test. This is giving the head of the department the ability to call upon you to do the test. If you fail to take the test, you fail to do the drug test, obviously there will be consequences that flow from that. I have never heard, I was about to define the type of lawyer. I have never heard a lawyer make such a submission that legislation has to provide in an employment circumstance and situation the consequences of if you fail to act on something. Well, you're not a lawyer, so you wouldn't know. So I am glad to see that the member for Siparia has joined. And of course, as she joins in a normal and typical fashion, the member for Siparia, she has to make it known and to disrupt. So the next one, yeah, is always PR. She would have taken a photograph on the corridor coming in here. So one 3, 4. The fifth area that someone can be subject to, it will be useful. Maybe I'm going to propose an amendment, Madam Speaker, at the committee stage, that maybe parliamentarians should also be subject to this. And the first one I will call upon for the testing of is the drug testing.
Dirty something else, yes. That was Minister Young yesterday, last evening, in his contribution to that bill. But I thought it fitting to play some of it so you can hear the importance of the legislation, what it is intended to do. And he's basically making a case. It is not, but he's trying to cover all the bases because he knows the opposition very well and what they're going to come with. All the excuses that they're going to come with as to why they can't support and infringing on people's rights and all kind of thing. And you have to define this. The bill doesn't define what is an officer and what is the difference between serious and grave. You see the petty things that they want to make an issue. Well, we can't support it because it doesn't define grave and it doesn't define serious. And all kind of stupidness. And we want to know if it is the information collected on these officers, if it would be secured properly and who would have access to it and so on. The minister spoke about examples in the case of Board of Inland Revenue, where if it is a person who owes $35 million in tax and they bribe somebody inside there to do a paperwork, they only pay $1 million, but they get a tax clearance certificate saying they satisfy the tax obligations. I remember the name Brent Thomas, that name that the opposition was bandying about, oh, they kidnap him, the TTPS kidnap him from Barbados and bring him back to Trinidad and all of that. And we saw a newspaper article in The Guardian which spoke to a BIR employee who was fired and charged by the TTPS. Why? For falsifying tax clearance certificates for Mr. Thomas. Yes, falsifying tax certificates for Mr. Thomas. So this is what they're trying to do, to weed out people like this individual who will be on the take. Who else did he do that for? Right? Allegedly, when Mr. Thomas get away with it. So these tax certificates, which claims he paid his tax liabilities, and he probably didn't. If you say, well, I get you. Yeah, what now? I have 3 or 4 other people who want the same thing. You could handle them. And you just call your price and they will do that for you. Because if you could save me from paying $5, $6, $7 million in taxes, and I only had to pay 1, well, I don't mind. I could give a little 100,000. I give her 150 a month. I rather pay 100,000 as a bribe rather than pay $5 million in taxes. So well, send them now, I can handle it for you. And depriving the state of its taxes, depriving you, citizen, of the taxes. This is why the government wants to bring in the Revenue Authority to be able to deal with things like this. And you say, no, Revenue Authority, we are supporting that. To hell with that. Put we back in office in 2025 and we will get rid of the Revenue Authority. Everything that this government tries to do, not just to deal with violent crime, but white-collar crime as well, that is robbing the treasury. Even that they will not support. Even that. Why? Because as David Abdullah has said on numerous occasions, he had a conversation with a former Minister of Finance under the PP who told him that they estimate that every year in this country, over $7 to $10 billion is in taxes are lost through tax evasion. And they know who the culprits are, but they could do nothing about it because the culprits in the main are financiers and persons related to that party. Imagine a Minister of Finance who takes an oath, who swore an oath, right? Without fear or favor, affection, or ill will, to uphold the Constitution and the law, is saying, well, I can't uphold the Constitution and the law, I can't uphold the law. The law says these people are supposed to pay their taxes. But I cannot uphold the law, notwithstanding the fact that I took an oath. Because if I do that, then the party ain't going to be able to get no money to fight elections. So I can't. I have to allow them. Allow them to not pay their taxes. Yeah? And they're making hundreds of millions of dollars in profits, but we're not gonna tax them. So if it is the city and paying it, well, all right, what we gonna do? That's our people, we can't do nothing. Yeah? And that's okay. So no Revenue Authority. They don't want to support this bill. To weed out corruption, wherever it is, it would raise its head. But they're concerned about crime. And they support a Trinidadian, see, watch when Rowley and the PNM take this country. The country is a hellhole. There's a crime. They're the same people who telling you put us back in office and we will cut the tax we will cut corporation tax in half from 35 to 18%. Why is that? To benefit who? To benefit who? But then David Nackett have the audacity, the temerity, and the gumption to get up in the parliament and in the Senate and talk about the PNM is sympathetic to criminals. Who really sympathetic to criminals? It's them when they refuse to support legislation like this to weed out corruption. But the supporters ain't gonna call them out on that. No. But you know what? They like to skirt the issue so to walk the fine line. So when it comes time to vote, they wouldn't vote no, because they know it's good legislation. And they know that the intent of the legislation is novel. It's good. They wouldn't vote no, they would say abstain. Abstain. So we didn't vote yes and we didn't vote no. So we didn't really go against it, it's just that we abstain. What that mean? Well, according to Kirk Mayhew, abstain doesn't mean no. So what does abstain mean? Because the outcome of an abstention is the same as voting no. The government does not get the 3/5 majority that it requires to pass the legislation, and therefore the bill fails. So you're a damn hypocrite and a coward. If it is just say no. Say no and abstain. Abstain. And when you ask for why did you all ask? Well, it had certain things we didn't agree with. Okay, so did you offer amendments at the committee stage? Did you make these recommendations for them to fix the things that you didn't agree with? You ain't gonna do that. We're just going to abstain. And the supporters clap for that. Yeah? And that is good legislation. And then they continue to complain. But then again, we know when we see in the newspaper articles come up about white collar crime, check who it is. Anyway, let me leave that there. But all you know, IYK. Yeah? All right. 7701763. Yeah, I went a little over this morning, but I felt I needed to play a little bit of Stuarty. But he had my ruling when he said he think he's going to suggest that this law apply to members of parliament. And first one is drug testing. I don't know for who, but yeah. Oh Lord have mercy. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, darling.
Morning.
Oh my God. You have me fucking up, No, well done.
Thank you.
While UNC oppose all these laws, we have coalition. And those laws will put away for them. Right? If I love my nation,
yes,
right, I will look at things from a view of the public domain. Am I doing this for me or as a whole? Right? Because if you have all them with like this man, of course, David Lee, right? And Jack Warner and Aram who stole from TCP, right?
Yes.
Why are you afraid? If you want to solve crime, solve it. Why call a crime? Because crime is crime across the land. Now there will be power again. And these laws will be slapped in their face. Right? Because you can't go to, all right, I want to come with clean hands on the nominee to be in power.
Yes.
That means a polygraph test will confirm or deny if I'm a white man bandit. Want to empower them. It is not nation, but the nation of the UNC they concern about.
Yes.
Right? I don't know where Roberts we coming from, What part of hell he coming from? Is he wholesome stupid? No one tell you. He is a clown in the voice of the highest order. You know, clown funny? He's a tragedy of a clown. Right? And Murilal, guess what? You keep it a water gun and my PMK with a verbal matic. You keep it an empty water gun. And my parents give you a verbal matic. Go back to the corner and cry. Don't have a good day, my darling. Bye-bye. Be blessed.
Thank you. You too. Like that. Verbal matic. Dr. Rowley load up the matic, pull it back, and he knock it on money level. Jen, come back. Good morning.
I'm morning, Dominic.
Morning.
Morning to all those who are tuning up to Pastor Stubborn days. Dominic, you know, in an abusive relationship, right? Sometimes the person is being abused. There's always be hoping that the abuser will change.
Yes.
Because the abuser always abuses 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they do show the human side, whatever that is. But we don't condone abuse. And we are not abused people. And anybody in that type of abusive relationship need to get some type of help.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this in the context of this. The UNC continue to abuse our sense of morality, ethics, everything. We values everything. And sometimes you wish that, okay, they will come and step up to the plate, and they don't ever do it. So that's why I'm talking about the abuse and the abused person. And the only way to treat with that abuse of the UNC, because they're supposed to be, they are the official opposition in this country. And they're working the scheme of things in the government system. It's the government in waiting and also to keep the current government on the toes to make sure they do what is right. And if they have any laws or legislation to pass in the interest of the whole country, that you support them.
Mm-hmm.
The UNC is not doing that. They've shown us that time and time and time again. We have heard them being accused of being corrupt. People who joined with them under the PP when they came back in 2010 and got this large mandate, the country want that change. We hear they corrupt, they involved in this, they involved in crime, they involved in alleged crime, they involved in alleged human trafficking. We have heard it all. Bad governance. The unions came out and said that, Roche said, Abdullah said, even the own ministers were there said, Gerald Hadid, etc. And it is a recurring decimal. I want to ask people, when 2025 comes, are you going to continue the abuse of the UNC on the people of this country? Or are you going to still listen? We have a government here who has holding the ship steady since they took over in 2015, when the Governor General of the Central Bank was a UNC came out and said, we only have money for 3 days. The country got alarmed, we were frightened, we were scared, and then we were met with COVID-19, a modern day pandemic. Not an epidemic, a pandemic. We saw people dying all over the world. We said the whole world shut down. Ships wasn't moving, plane wasn't flying, nothing. And this government would have held us steady. Workers were paid every month, those who are not essential workers got salaries every month. No public officer went home. In other countries, public officers were going home. Right in Barbados, under Mia, who we love so much because they before the INS, since she came into office. They've had structural adjustment programs, and you know what that means. Cut all social programs, cut this, cut that. And we have Dr. Rowley and his team who have steered this country through COVID-19. Yes, we have lost loved ones. We have crime. And we have seen that crime is a real challenge. And they are trying and doing, but they don't do these things in isolation. All hands on deck, even the public supposed to be involved in this. And we will ride this and we'll ride it until we get it right. But we must never, ever put on our guards and allow the UNC to get back into office. And as for Rodney Charles, until he apologized to us, because he was the ambassador for Trinidad in America during 2010 to 15, where all other ambassadors all over the world would have refused to meet with Maureen Pelen, who is a racist, when she was trying to drum up support. Even the French ambassadors across in America, even Casey Mine, but we, Rodney Charles, went and sat down and had lunch with her. So when they say about, they like about African licorice and hungry, you see when they look at his situation, we can afford to say probably it's true. Because when the whole world refused to meet with Palin, he, who represented Trinidad and Tobago as the ambassador, went and had lunch with her. So I just show you the mindset of those who are on the opposite side of the UNC. Nothing good for this country. It appears as though it's just a quick buck. Their own interest. Yeah? Things only that suit them and their friends and their family. We have seen it. And I'm saying again, when you look at the work of Dr. T. Christopher Rowley, why is that transformational leader? From day one I've said that. I feel it in my gut. It's an intuition. And you see ministers like Stuart Young, you see ministers of Calabar, like coming once in the and it goes on and on. All the young ones who have now are part of the PNL, no matter what race they are, see the vision of Dr. Christopher Rowley and has come on board to steer this country on the right path. And I'm asking all this to be like, will you allow the UNC, whether they come PP, whether they come DPP, wherever they come as, will you allow these people to get back their hands on this country when we have so many positive things happening? We have the Dragon D, we have Minister Stuart Young, Dr. Rowley, making sure we get back our corporate tax, everything from these companies and they who here dealing with oil and all that, to come around and say, take everything until 2024. Where they get contractors money to build things that never finished. Take we money and do that. Take money from the treasury to put to save in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. All those things they do. You are going to allow this country to come back in their hands because what? You don't like Dr. Rowley, those smile. You're too black. You're arrogant. You put people in office because you like them or because you can do the job. Dominic, as usual, thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak when you do come on. Do have a blessed day to everybody. Have a blessed day. Much love. Bye.
You too, Jen. Thank you so much. Always on point. As I mentioned, Duppy. Imagine. Duppy. Morning, sir.
Well said on everything so far. But one thing I disagree with the Prime Minister with, I'm going to join select committee to determine what transpired over the OAS for important highway without a waste of time. Because we know about the report a minority report, and they will deny everything. But by how they when it came up. But I think there's something.
Repeat that, you broke up a bit there, just.
Yeah, in the UK right now.
No, I was nowhere.
But I can't watch it on Sky News because Mr. Collins gave a perspective on how they were doing that. And when you want the contrast to what so-called first lab, we had A1 management of our COVID situation. Because Mr. Cummings actually said that in one of the meetings, you see, well, first of all, he said that the Prime Minister then, Mr. Johnson, was totally disinterested. That's like how Mr. Trump was operating. And only when in one of the presentations, when they gave a projection on how it would spread and what it would mean in terms of the debilitating effects across the economic landscape of the UK, is when they realized, well, listen, we have to really form a committee, all of government and sectors committee to deal with this thing. That is when they decided to take it serious. So I would urge persons who had the time to go and look at that COVID inquiry on Sky News and let the facts be laid bare for you all to appreciate the type of leadership we had here during our COVID crisis. You understand?
Yes.
My brother, just to take some time and watch a few minutes of the inquiry. I think my comments was the point, man, and the comments was the point one. So, brother, what he had to say, staggering. But we want to pour scorn on the effort that was done here for us by our government. But brother, going forward, I would say that the legislation, I know it won't receive any support, but I would again say you need to couple it with an official secret act. You need to have that. And I would like them to go that way to deal with as whistleblowers when they're in fact not, and deal with them severely. Take care, my brother.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to the next episode when that comes.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Dominic.
Morning, sir.
Dominic, in the private sector, once you hold a sensitive position, you don't necessarily have to be a manager or anything like that, but you hold a sensitive position.
Yes.
And leak information, like example, you leak information to the company's competitor. There are consequences for that.
Yes.
Ranging from suspension, demotion, or termination of your job. So it's saying that so what it is about the public sector that they don't implement these standards. They UNC always come with some kind of nonsense. And as I say to an area, the people in these things, they wouldn't go say, because I think I'm looking at the sector, Mali and the police coming to Russia. Where did Kamala Prasad sector get information from? You keep off Mali and police come in. Suppose Mali keep the country or going to hide or something. You don't do things like that as a opposition leader.
Yes.
Where you keep getting these information that they will take, because those things have serious consequences to whatever case the police trying to fill. You got information and you give the person who's been watched an opportunity to put up a defense or to find loopholes to get out to come and tell you, this thing was said here and nobody asking a question, the police did not time asking a question. All these things are used. They don't start to find your people to get a loophole. And like I said, other people get a loophole. So they use that because remember, these people are lawyers.
Yes.
They know what they do. Right? They come up and they know something of okay, like if they know the police coming to arrest one of them, they come out early and put talking in public. So they use that in court now as a fighting charge. Not that they're innocent, but they use that as a loophole to get off. We think this is Brazil Party, London Bank account, and they London Party. It's not that the Brazil Party didn't acquire that and they still don't know how they acquired it because somebody made an error. And I think that was deliberate. The Brazil Party. That was deliberate. That was and I said, I have no problem in them doing it. I see no problem at all that certain officers who hold top positions like a senior superintendent tipping off Ramdani, and Ramdani bust it into Venezuela. And when the next day the same officer had to fly to Venezuela, get back Ramdani and bring him back. And you know what he do? He retire. He retired soon after that and he got a whole lump sum of money and he still on the table. He did not face the consequences of that crime that he committed. And this is what the law is all about. It's not about going after people.
Yes.
I mean, Mr. What if? Mr. What if? And what if? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. They don't make sense to me. You see, why they're doing that is because they want to protect their interests. So the law, they don't have a problem in passing the law, but they're always looking at their interests. So if you're a minister, or I'm sorry, not minister, MP, on the other side, would have no stay in place. You know when you reach before the quorum, the boss lady say no. Right? And because you also have to ask yourself, Dominic, what was the reason for the spy equipment in the PPP's office?
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
Remember the email spoke to that? The message from the email spoke to that, but the email was, yes, fake email. Literally, they're talking about literally or the email. It was designed as a whistleblower and to protect the whistleblower. But what the whistleblower says, the message from that was able to crash a whole set of systems that network of system that these people was breaking the law with impunity. Imagine if they didn't find that. They would have been winning cases in court large back and center because they know every move the DPP was coming with.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Before I go. So, mate, some of your callers and emails over here, why they don't get your own program? Well, I said it, so you don't need for you to come on and say it again. Thank you.
Oh boy. Hello, good morning. So, look at this here.
Good morning.
Morning, morning.
Good morning, Dominic.
Hi, morning.
But Dominic,
Yeah.
I see him announcing the protest about electricity, the concept about electricity,
Yes.
highways and electricity. I want them to protest that we take all the streets, the roads fixed over, all by the library, the thing mashing up your car. Mashing up your car. They want all in Norwich Street and have flood. When you see the rainfall, I live in a street.
Yes.
When you see the rainfall, it runs about full of water. You can't take it past. Water comes in the yard. I wanted to do that kind of protest. You don't business with the people in the house and see me, you know. You don't know. You don't protest for that kind of thing.
Wow.
You rode out by the library over there, it's in a mess. It's mashing up all your cars. Right?
Yes.
And the whole housing scheme, the streets are never you in a mess. I wanted to need a protest to get it fixed. You have a blessed family.
You too. He wouldn't do that. Come here to talk about electricity rates. I saw one sec, Brian. Doppy. Imagine Vandana Mohit have to correct Doppy. Doppy watching espionage and ball espionage. And Vandana Mohit had to tell him no, it's espionage. And yet it is espionage. Thanks to my colleague. Yeah, but this man was an ambassador, representative to the UN and ball watching espionage and ball espionage. And anyway, Brian, morning.
Morning, Dominic. How are you?
I am good, and yourself?
Not too bad. Good morning to all of your listeners and callers. Dominic, you studying Duppy was going good, you know. But as soon as the boss walked in, as soon as she walked in, because she wasn't there in the beginning,
yes,
to the initial voting.
I don't even know why she came.
You understand? But realistically, she could take a little while to come up this step.
Yeah.
You know, so she was everybody to see how you're getting out, she's getting up. So she has to make attention after everybody reach. You know, yeah, when you have things to hide now.
Yeah.
But then when she reached, go back and look at how she was watching Duppy. You know, like when you're in love with somebody, you know, you poke your head in forward, so.
Yes.
Go back and watch.
I'm telling them.
So many things you were thinking about.
Yeah.
But decided not to go there.
I'm telling them, Rodney, on a roll today, boy. You're on a roll.
Huh?
And she only telling them, but Rodney, on a roll today.
Yes. Go back and look at it and you can see how she was looking at it. Because all I was showing was the head. You understand? Because she pushed the head for anyway. Another story. Let's move on. Dominic.
Yes, sir.
Professor Ken Julian, I want to expressly, like the Honorable Prime Minister, to thank him for his service to this country. Because you see, a lot of people may not understand. Because while, yes, I agree that the refinery was bringing in a lot of foreign exchange for us, but we were also losing a lot of money. And it was being hidden in the books because heritage or exploration and production, as we knew it at the time, was making a profit. So they would amalgamate everything and hide it in the books. So it never looked as though that the refinery was losing that type of money on a barrel of oil. It's only when this government came in and decided to segregate and do everything separately, they recognized that the refinery was having all of these people and pay, and then everything, whenever it broke down, you had these fly-by-night little service companies spraying up all over the place, making a lot of money. They're selling a screwdriver for when it could be costing you $5 or $10, it's costing you $150 and that kind of thing. The markup was great, exorbitant. So people were making money. And not only that, the government had two major debts to repay. One for $850 million US, and then another one for $750 million US, one-time payment that were coming due. And the government, because remember, when they took over, they didn't have any money in the treasury. And the government had to find the money. I could remember Ember saying that I ain't taking on that responsibility, you know. All you take, all you take on that, it's all your business. But then when the Honorable Prime Minister was told, well, listen, it's not only going to affect Petrotry, it's going to affect the entire nation. Something had to be done. Yes, and he did his investigation, he did his due diligence, and he made decisions that he knew would have hurt certain people, but he made the decisions and paid the employees exorbitant amounts of money to do. But that again is another story. But what Professor Ken Julian did for Trinidad and Tobago was he Point Lisa Spedeco industrial estate, where you have over 100 plants and industries. Yes? And today, there's also Atlantic LNG with the 4 trains. And today, Dominic, while we may not have the refinery, we have the Point Lisa's industrial estate where we are manufacturing ammonia, urea, and methanol. And Proman has such confidence in this government that they have opened a headquarters around the Queen's Park Savannah recently. And they have also just completed negotiations with NGC for their methanol plants as well as their ammonia plants. And people must understand that this country supplies the global society, the globe, the world, with 25% of the ammonia that is needed. People must understand how important that is. You understand? Because the ammonia being produced in America is for the American people to use on their plants and their industries and so on. They don't have time to be saying all that wrong in the world. So Trinidad and Tobago is supplying all of this methanol. Just recently, they signed a contract in Canada with Methanex because just many of their vessels will be using hydrogen and methanol as instead of using gas or diesel to propel the ships and the new vessels. So therefore, they will come to our port in order to refill, in order to go around the world, and that is important. And people have to understand these things, Dominic. Right? This is very, very important, but they won't understand that. They will also understand too that if Professor Ken Julian did not build Atlantic LNG or have the insight into Atlantic LNG, that the Lauren Manatee as well as the Dragonfield gas would not be coming to Trinidad. People have to understand these things, and therefore we are in a strategic position in order to fulfill these needs, and we will be making money, a lot of money shortly. Just now, this month, this Honorable Prime Minister is going to London to sign an agreement where we will be having shared interests and shares in trains 2 and 3, which we didn't have before. But people must understand when they're sleeping and they're partying and they're fetting, that the country will be making money for not for Dr. Rowley and the PNM, but for you and me, for us. People have to realize these things. It is important. I'll be sleeping, I'll be snowing, I'm studying how much air conditioning we're going to use and all that kind of thing, and then fetting and having a good time. And with this thing and that thing, that the country making money. We must understand these things. And this is the legacy of Dr. Rowley that you'll be leaving for us. That nobody will be able to overturn that. Because that contract is thousands and thousands of documents, and there are legal people right now going through those documents with the relevant bodies like BP and Shell in order to determine what it will be our shared percentage. And that will be for us, the people of Trinidad. When Dr. Rowley resigned or retires, he ain't going to be over that to see about sheep and goats. It's for us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So I want to thank Professor Ken Julian for doing this, for having the foresight. Do you know we are still paying for that loan that was taken for that smelter plant? That the UNC decided All the people elaborate, tell them, hey, that ain't good for you.
Yes.
We're still paying and trying to negotiate down that loan that was already given by the Chinese. We're still paying for that today, but when we sleep, we still paying for it. But people won't understand that. No. We're still paying for it. But it's okay. We will work around that. The government will work on that. Dominic, let me tell you something. I listened yesterday to the Parliamentary channel. And people have to understand something. When the UNC was there between 2010 and 2015, they put people in strategic positions. And they allowed things to go haywire. It's only when this government again came in 2015, we got to realize exactly how bad it was.
Yes.
You understand? And with this, what they are attempting to do is in order to bring people to book. So that, hey, if they suspect certain people doing certain things on the hand, you understand? Because you see, yes, we have murders in the country, but you see, when you're thieving the money, and when you want foreigners to come in here and invest their money, and they see, like, well, I invest my money. Suppose other people come and thief out my money, but it's not me going there. So foreign investment will be a no-no. And that is, and I think yesterday on the news, the Attorney General spoke about that with respect to the Caribbean. That foreign investment and trade is hampering the development as well as tourism. It's hampering the development of Caribbean countries. He spoke about it yesterday. But you see, we must remind the people, Dominic, of certain things that transpired before. Yes. You remember in 2015 when this government got into office, how many vessels we had working the Tobago Trinidad route on the sea bridge? 2. We had the Express. We had the other vessel, what is again the
There was just the Spirit and the Express.
Excuse me?
The Spirit and the Express.
Right.
Just those 2.
But no, we had another one, Dominic, and that is the more important one.
The Galicia?
That's right. People, you mustn't forget, Dominic. Let me remind you, because you just remind me. Let me remind you. Remember a lady called Iris Alfonso? Where she was working at the time? On the port.
She was counsel.
She was the attorney for the port, not so?
Yes, they retained her services to find out about the...
Right, but she was also doubling on something else too.
Yes.
But she also doubling on, Dominic.
The company
she was a broker.
That's right.
She was the broker for the Superpart Galicia, not so?
Correct.
Right, and remember there were 2 people who were eventually fired from the port because of underhand dealings with that Superpart Galicia, and that Superpart Galicia attempted to hold this country to ransom in 2015, 2016 for more money to work at, and they threatened that if they didn't get more money for the services of the vessel that they were going to leave. You remember that?
Yep.
And Neri Alfonso was recognized as the broker for that Superpart Galicia. And eventually she was removed from there. Remember that?
But the company went...
Remember, when you have people on the inside. Remember the insider traded with First Citizens Bank?
Yes.
That's a particular gentleman, a certain brokerage company. But the fellow used to come on every Monday morning. Right now, with the same company there, but he moved his face.
Yes.
Remember that? I think it was about 600 and something thousand, 600 metric man, exactly how much he said it was. We mustn't forget that these things. But what is worse, Dominic, because apparently you may have missed it in the news, 2 banks were robbed. You know what the news said last night, Dominic? People just listening up. For those who missed it said apparently the robbers had keys. Where they get the keys from, Dominic? Where they get the keys from to rob those 2 banks, and they took out the trays from the ATMs.
Yes.
So they get inside the bank. They don't have much time because remember, the banks will have the alarm that will be set up, and then the security came running.
Yes.
But by the time the security got there, the bandits were already gone. And it appeared as though, according to the news, that they would have had keys to certain doors to open. Where they get them keys from, Dominic? How do you know what key to get?
Good question.
Remember the lady who from Canada or America who came to do some business in Trinidad and was kicked and beaten on I think in Chinatown by two men, where she was followed from the bank from Independence Square straight up to Frederick Street, and she lost $100,000 and she swears she's not coming back.
Yes.
And then she said she had a concern about how the money was being given to her, being exposed. I'm not saying that a bank employee, I don't know, but it is alleged by what I heard her say, that there are people on the inside are doing certain things and exposing certain people and exposing certain banks to be pilfered, money stolen. And this is why this is necessary to ensure that all of your employees who you may choose at random, who may have access to certain keys and certain sensitive information, that they can be, go through the various tests and so on, so that you will have confidence in the employees and those in the authority that to have relevant information. Look at as you rightly said, look at the FIU information on Gary Griffith. You remember one more thing. There was a document missing between the court and the Attorney General's office, and I think that investigation is still going on. And when the AG was about to call for a news conference, the big document turned up, and he dropped it on the desk in front of him.
Yes.
Has anybody been caught yet? How come he got back the document? And these are the things, Dominic, that the government is trying, the holes that they are trying to plug. But you see, you're not going to get support from the UNC because the UNC have cocoa in the sun. They want to know what investigations, they want to know how far it reached, they want to know this. That's why the what if opposition will commit what ifs.
Yes.
And that's why Duffy will commit all of its suppositions and all this stupidness that's talking about it that just doesn't make any sense. You understand?
Yes.
So I thought so Duffy could gallivant and ratty in front of the leader because at 71 years old he's trying to get back inside it for another 5 years because he had nothing else to do. You understand? So it is what it is. But the government has to keep working. And we will see what will eventually happen with the end of this bill when it comes back to the Parliament. And we will see whether or not they will support it. I doubt very much, Dominic. Dominic, have a good day.
You too, sir. And I highly doubt they will support it either. But another note, I see Minister of Finance has announced that the permanent secretary who indicated to him that the BAPI would not be able to be paid until May next year was in fact the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education. And to quote the Minister of Finance, no permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance could ever tell me that an instruction that I put out can be carried out. So that persons whose unions would have accepted the 4%, he said as early as this month, November, some of them will be getting their back pay. And once all of the auditing and so on is done, and the ministry will be providing assistance to all of these entities to have that audit done in a timely fashion so that he can make good on his promise and the government's promise to have them receive their back pay in time for Christmas, right? So the government is intent. So when you have people like Stefan Rees from Synergy TV breaking down, want to do a live on TikTok and whatever, looking for views and talking a pack of nonsense about, oh, it was Mama Guy thing and the thing, and wait, or they just have to wait for the information. But when you're quick to jump out yourself, let me go and do a live, let me go and do a TikTok. Yeah, to bash the government. And then what? And then when the minister comes out and makes us say, well, you end up looking like a fool. You end up looking like a fool. So it's one permanent, not even permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance. It is the PS and the Ministry of Education would have made that pronouncement. As the minister said, no PS could tell him how to run his department. And therefore, barring on any unforeseen circumstance, the back pay will be paid by Christmas and in some cases before. So kudos again to government. And we know the opposition don't like that. So they will continue to present gloom and doom and say all kind of thing and whatnot. But we see through that. So we're not fooled. Yeah, folks. So it is, what is the time now? 9:05. So let me thank you all again for joining me this morning. Baba Osei says they say that they see they was going to sue the government, and Dr. Rowley says he's still waiting. Anon says, if admins are escorted off the site when fired, all passwords change, etc. Babose also says, I don't know, but all them Petrochen employees get a severance, but half of them are rehired, and Heritage is making profit as we speak. We say good morning to Mother Tunapuna. Yes, Joycelyn, Mother is saying they're not coming back. Kamlan not coming back. I tell her she's not coming back. Thank you so much, Brian. Brian Deming. We try. Yes, so to all of you who have, right, and Anon is saying that PS must know extra resources will be allocated and they will transfer detail. Yes. So our minister is not playing. They like to say PNM's promises never materialize, but the government is doing what it can. So thank you all so much for joining me this morning. God's willing, we'll be back on Sunday. If anything changes, I'll try to let you all know. Usually, let's see. Okay, I don't know who's telling me my page is unresponsive. I don't know on YouTube. Yeah, so if it is that I can't do the live, normally I would send out a message on Facebook on the debunking page that the live is either postponed or as the case may be. So in order for me to do it on Facebook, on YouTube, I would either have to do a short live, and post it as a video so that you all can see, right? So once that's the case, I will let you know. I may have something to do on Sunday. I haven't decided yet. So, but I should know by Saturday and I'll let you know. Thank you so much, Carol. Carol, I had to get that thing for you for National Trust. We have some stuff coming up. This month we also have the tour. Again, I remind you all of the tour of the Magnificent Seven, where, well, the traditional Magnificent Seven, and we also include President's House is now part of that tour as well. So if you've never seen the inside of President's House, you will be able to on this tour. Let me just take this quickly. Last call before I jump out. Hello, good morning. Yes, sir.
At this one, before you go, you know, people don't give information to the police because they say the police go back and tell the person, the criminal, like you want to after them.
Yes.
This is how that law will kick you. So if I give a police officer information and it's someone back to the person that this is what I said, he should know, take a polygraph test to find out if he really did that and it will be dealt with, so it will eliminate that, bring down those things.
Yes.
So this is a good law to be brought into Parliament, and I hope that the good sense prevail with the opposition, which I doubt. They support the bill to pass it because it would need a special majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe if they support it, we can find out the 40 guns that went missing from Forensic Science Center under them. Maybe we could find out who took it, where it went. Yeah, but they're not interested in that. So we wait and see when that debate resumes, whenever the House is called again, if they will continue, what a subsequent date, and we will see what the outcome is. But I anticipate we will hear abstain, they're not going to support it, and that bill will languish, and so people could continue to get Gary information. Folks, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Make it a productive one, and we will chat again, God's willing, on Sunday.